Hi, I'm Mike. I'm an American who's been living here in Paraguay for the last 15 years, and I make videos about Paraguay and my life here. And today, here we are on a very hot Saturday afternoon here in Luque. I've got my trusty Volks beer to try and keep cool. This is their Stout. Very good. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about social stability here in Paraguay, and this might be kind of a controversial little video that I'm making here because it goes against the grain of what a lot of the popular belief is these days, but I've already done videos here about crime in Paraguay and political stability, and so I thought I would make a comment on the social stability here in Paraguay. And social stability here is much better than it is in Europe or in the United States. And that mainly has to do with Paraguay's lack of diversity. And I know that the mantra today is that diversity is our strength. Diversity is not a strength. It's the hint is in the prefix div, which comes from the Latin word divis, which means to separate. And it leads to words like division and divisive. These are not strengths in society. Diversity is great if we're talking about your investment portfolio, or if you're a young person and we're talking about your love life, you've got plenty of diversity, well, God bless you. But diversity in a social setting is the antithesis of a strength. Homogeneity is a strength. Cohesiveness is a strength. And talking about diversity here in Paraguay, I'm going to start with the ethnic breakdown here in Paraguay. And this is as listed in, or my sources for this are both Gemini and Grok AI platforms and Wikipedia. So basically 75% of the people here in Paraguay are what's known as mestizos. Now this is an old term going back to Spain back in the time of the conquistadores. So basically qualifying somebody genetically based on their background. So a mestizo would be somebody who was a native indigenous person who was the result of a birth from an indigenous person and a Spaniard. Now, those days are long gone. The genetic makeup is much more complicated than that when you've got hundreds of years of people intermarrying. So it wouldn't be a 50-50 breakdown anymore. Lord only knows what it would be. But 75% of the people here qualify themselves as mestizo. So mixed, let's call it indigenous blood and Spanish blood. Aside from that, 20% qualify themselves as white, basically coming out of Europe, mainly Germany, Italy, and mainly Germany and Italy, but also to some degree Nordic countries. So, and then the remaining 5%, of that remaining 5%, 2.5% are indigenous peoples, and the remaining 2.5% are other, so basically mainly Asian. There are very strong communities here from Korea and Japan. And so you don't have a lot of infighting within these ethnic groups. Really, there's no reason to. So any hostility, any anger, anything that's bubbling below the surface, as it is in other countries, doesn't exist here. Now I'll look at, or I'll talk about religious diversity here, or the religious breakdown. 96% of the country is Christian. So that breaks down to approximately 88% being Catholic, and the other 8% Protestant, and the various divisions within that category, Methodist and evangelical and all of these things. So basically 96% Christian. and the other 4% is divided among other religious groups, Muslims, Jews, and the others, basically, that would, I don't know, maybe Buddhist. But aside from this fact, there is no type of religious oppression here. I mean, I personally have friends who are Jewish. I have friends who are Jehovah's Witness. I have friends who are Mormon. Pretty much everybody's a Catholic. I myself, if anybody's interested, I am a Protestant, but not very much practicing these days. But anyway, when we look at this breakdown of ethnic and religious factions within Paraguay, you see that it's basically pretty harmonious. There aren't a lot of deep-seated animosity between groups or anything like that that's allowed to flourish. And the good thing about this is that there's no plan here from the Paraguayan government or from any other outside forces, or maybe there is and I just don't know, but to upset that apple cart. So Paraguay doesn't have an open borders policy. There aren't millions of people screaming to come into Paraguay that have nothing to do with Paraguayan culture or language or values, as is happening in Europe. Paraguay is basically, in that respect, like I say, peaceful, harmonious, social. What's the word I'm looking for? Cracks in the social structure that exist in the United States, in Europe, don't exist here. And it's a shame, from my point of view, it's a shame what has happened to both Europe and the United States in the last couple decades. But as an example, I just saw a statistic basically about Germany, that Germany in the last 15 years has let in over 8 million migrants into their country. And these are people that didn't speak the language, don't share any of the culture or values of their nation, basically have an animosity, an ancient animosity against the values that exist in Germany, and they've been let in, and not only let in, they've been invited in and incentivized, much like in some ways a similar situation to the United States. Not so drastic in the cultural differences maybe, but the idea that you've incentivized millions of people that don't speak your language, don't have any history connection to your country, in fact have a very strong affinity for the country that they're leaving. They're just leaving for economic reasons. So anyway, these tend to be sources of social instability, and those, thank God, don't exist here. So anyway, that's the video that I wanted to make today. A little bit controversial because people these days are very sensitive to any type of criticism of their own beliefs, and they get angry if you voice your own, and it doesn't go well. But anyway, I'm going to finish my Volks beer. Oh, and by the way, if you are thinking about coming here to Paraguay, moving here to Paraguay, check out my webpage, paraguaymike.com. My wife is a lawyer, and she has been providing residency services for over 10 years now. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. If you did, maybe give me a like. And adios, amigos.